Good science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Where you been?
Drunk. Wendy? Darling? Light of my life.
What is your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course. I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck up and die.
You were talking about coworkers.
Dude, I did. I almost lost my mind today at my coworkers just because I was like, hey, you guys ever seen The Departed? Because like movies started coming up a little bit, and not one person had ever even heard of The Departed. I asked like, no kidding, like 8 people, and no, everyone's like, is that a horror movie? And I'm like, no. I'm like, how have you? I'm like, literally, it's not that old. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio. It's got fucking the Matt Damons, Jack Nicholson, fucking Mark Wahlberg. Like, it won Best Picture at the fucking Academy Awards.
Dude, I actually was talking about this. I think it just was this like overnight like cultural phenomenon that hit, and everybody for like one St. Patrick's Day was just like, you know, I'm shipping off to Boston. They were straight up fucking just went bonkers with this movie because for me personally, I saw this movie in theaters, and then I think maybe once or twice with John, you know, and like the guys, like watching it again like a year later. Like I have not watched this movie and or / thought about this movie in like 15 years.
Yeah.
So it was definitely like for me just this like bolt of lightning where I was like, wow, this is huge, won Best Picture. Everyone was like, greatest acting ever, you know, it's gonna live in infamy, and now no one talks about it.
This is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast. I'm Levi, that's Jordan over there. Obviously we're talking about the fucking Departed.
That's what it spawned, dude. Every late night show, everyone was like, The Departed, Boston dude.
Yeah. Departed. Yeah, this movie, man. It was like exploded when it came out. I think my reaction to it is kind of weird. I think it stuck with me a little bit longer. Like I thought it was more popular than it was, I guess. But it's like I saw it when it came out, and I thought it was fine. But I was really pissed off because another movie that year had come out, Children of Men, and I was like a huge Children of Men fanboy. I thought Children of Men was like one of the greatest movies I've ever seen, and I stand by that. Children of Men is fucking incredible.
Oh, and go listen to our pod.
Yeah, exactly. Children of Men is a masterpiece, and
we love it.
This movie came in and like absolutely dominated the conversation about movie discourse back in 2006 or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck, Children of Men? Why is no one talking about Children of Men? Like it's still fairly popular, and then like the Academy Awards came around and Children of Men got nominated for quite a few things at least, but in every category that Children of Men was nominated, The Departed won. And so I like, maybe not, I'd have to go look at it again, but I just remember specifically like The Departed won like I'm gonna look at it so I don't look like an idiot, but it's like it won like best editing, and I was like, what the fuck, over Children of Men and like best cinematography or something?
Dude, if it won best editing, I'm gonna like best cinematography. That's so
something else had to have won, but there's no way The Departed won fucking best cinematography.
No, I don't know.
Boring cinematography.
That's what I'm saying. I was gonna say if it did win, it's just they were just piling on. But like fucking best editing, no Scorsese film should ever win best editing. They're not edited that like. There's cool sequences edited throughout. They're always just serviceable.
Effectively.
Yeah, effectively. Scorsese he's a legend. He's a phenomenal director.
Best achievement in film editing. It won. Yeah.
Against Children of Men? Now I'm even more heated, dude. I'm out of my seat.
I gotta look. Because it's like,
Oh my
it didn't win
God.
Best Cinematography, but
Are you trolling me right now? There's no way that it won Best Editing.
It definitely did. And watching this time, I was painfully aware that I'm like, the editing in this movie is not good. It's not good. Like, granted, like you said, and like we talked about in our Goodfellas episode, go listen to Goodfellas. Like, Martin Scorsese is the kind of filmmaker that he puts the story above all else, and he doesn't give a fuck about continuity. If he's got to do a weird edit, whatever he's got to do to portray the characters to get the best take, whatever it is. They don't care if they're holding a fucking Starbucks cup in that take. If that's the take that's got the best, he's getting the rights, But this movie, the editing was fine. I understand it was like jarring, and so the editing, I guess at the end of the day, it's like is more noticeable than like a lot of movies where editing is supposed to be invisible, like Children of Men. But it's like the editing in this is like very noticeable, but it felt like they shot this and they didn't get enough coverage. They shot it and they're like, okay, here you go. And they gave it to the editor and they're like, fuck, there's no goddamn transition between these two scenes. There's no, establishing shot or anything. I guess I'm just going to fucking just zoom right into this and like add a car sound effect, even though the car's not moving, to show somehow motion between two scenes. Cause there is that scene where they go like, and it's literally just a stationary shot that they cut to.
Okay. My God. Okay, dude, this whole movie was like tripping me out because I thought it was just me. I'm like, God, the editing on this is so unscorsese. Like there's no momentum.
It seemed a little it definitely seemed way choppier than most of his movies, in my opinion.
And it's almost like where in Goodfellas you'll get scenes where Goodfellas, I think there's like 4 montages, that go, if not like 6
at least,
montages,
at least
that elapse time, and build a large. Each character almost gets their own freaking time lapse to like montage. But this one, it's like every time they did it, it would be like zoop, and it only did it. God, I only maybe twice in this one, but it's like they're just time itself in this movie felt so broken to me. Like freaking Leonardo was like, he's an undercover cop for a year, and you find that out in a fucking throwaway conversation,
snippet of dialogue.
It's like in this dialogue. I'm just like, God, this is so.
Sorry, we're on that rant now. It did lose.
Yeah.
Children of Men was also nominated for Best Editing, and it lost to The Departed. And I think so. When this came out, I was pissed because I was a Children of Men fanboy.
Well, then, and okay. Do you want me to do I wrote the synopsis for it. We got it here. Let me.
Sorry,
we'll hop back.
We're coming in. We're coming in hot.
Yeah.
We're coming in hot. Sorry, guys.
Let's
back it up. Slow it down.
Let's take a deep breath, everybody. So, I'm gonna read you a little synopsis for the listener at home who maybe has never seen this movie and wants to know some more of the plot.
Apparently, a lot of people.
Couple of the characters. Yeah, right. A lot of people. And if you're listening to this without ever seeing the movie, it's kind of fine, honestly, because you'll just hear us rant about it, and then you can go watch it and kind of like, you can notice. It's like I just can't imagine not seeing this movie and being like a fan of Scorsese, but it also it kind of had its moment. That's what we were just saying earlier. But let me jump right in real quick. Okay, The Departed. Brutal and esoteric Irish mob boss Frank Costello runs South Boston. His main protege is Colin Sullivan, a global do-gooder that Frank has been grooming since childhood, and making him an easy target to convince to join the state police force as a mole. And another graduate around this time is Billy Costigan, a police recruit with a scattered past who's chosen by Captain Quinnen and Staff Sergeant Dignam, whatever, Dignam, as an undercover officer, known only to them, assigned to infiltrate Costello's organization. As each side of the organizations become aware that it has been infiltrated, Sullivan and Costigan work to determine the identity of the mole while trying to keep their own duplicity from being found out. They engage in a game of cat and mouse in which each is often within an inch of discovering the other. In an extra twist, it emerges that Frank Costello is also an FBI informant. Upon learning this, Sullivan kills Costello. Costigan then attempts to give up his undercover role, thus revealing himself to Sullivan, but he discovers that Sullivan was Costello's mole all along, ending in a violent climax. Costigan is killed by a second dirty cop, and Sullivan kills that cop and walks away free. He returns to his home only to be ambushed and killed by Dignam. Then we pan to a rat of all rats. It's a real rat.
It's yeah. these fucking cheese-eating rats.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So it's like there's so many. Now that I read that, I'm like, you probably didn't follow any of that. 'Cause there's so many. There's just too many names.
They're all rats.
Too many like Irish names that are
Yeah.
all.
Matt Damon's a rat mobster in with the cops. Leonardo DiCaprio is a rat cop in with the mobsters.
Dude,
and
let's see if we can make this whole podcast without saying they're the same side of each or whatever. They're the other side of a coin or whatever. What the fuck's that term?
I bet I can go the whole podcast without saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know that. Yeah, like oh, no. I watched a bunch of interviews, like every interview with Mark Wahlberg, every interview with Matt Damon, and every interview with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Look at you.
They say that. They each say, "Oh, well, the main guys are a different side of the same coin."
Of the same coin, yeah.
Yeah, they're like two sides of the same coin. Everybody said, I'm like, it must have been in their like press release or something. They had
literally,
to say that
it's that's what makes this movie so exciting, though. It's just that the two characters, and it's like they're both fairly, obviously one is quote unquote more of the bad guy because he's a lion, whatever. But
that's actually what I wanted to ask.
It's the yin and
like,
yang. It's the back and forth about how it's like got the parallels between the two is what makes it interesting.
Well, this movie brings up a lot of like, it's like this really does a decent character study on protagonist and what that means, like.
Yeah, a lot of
yeah,
exactly, because a lot of Scorsese movies like they have ensemble cast, but they focus on like there's essentially like like a narrator or obviously a main point of focus. It's like you watch Raging Bull, it's Robert De Niro. You watch fucking Goodfellas, it's Ray Liotta. You know what I mean? It's like there's always a central protagonist. Wolf of Wall Street's fucking Leonardo DiCaprio again.
Yeah.
There's always like a main guy, even though there's like this huge cast of characters that it does follow other characters outside of his scope. But this movie, it's like, you're rooting essentially for Leonardo DiCaprio because he is the undercover cop. But his brain's just frying from the pressure, but it's just like you get the same, probably equal, if not more, amount of screen time from Matt Damon's character and then like all the other characters have like a ton of screen time. So it is interesting to know, to see like which one, because technically they could both be seen as like dual protagonists, and then Jack Nicholson's characters would be the antagonist for sure because he's playing them both. He's essentially the real villain of the whole thing.
I think that's like, it's easy to see him as the antagonist, but I like this movie where it really like there is not a protagonist. It's kind of just like everyone is just
bunch of fucking rats. Yeah, no, and it's true.
Yeah, just eating up in the whole like cricket system, and like no one's cooperating. It's like it's like it's a good. So that's the whole thing. It's like this is a solid movie. It's just kind of like it feels very weak compared to like his other films. I mean, maybe just coming off of Godfather too. It's like I don't know. I just was Godfather held up, or Goodfellas. Yeah.
Goodfellas, so you haven't even seen Godfather. We talked about that.
I know. Yeah. But I'm a poser. But it's like dude, in Goodfellas, they like, I don't know, you feel like a genuine like camaraderie, a genuine family, and like, I guess it's like in Goodfellas, they are the protagonists because they like kind of they portray it like that. Everyone like, you know, even though they're doing terrible things, they have like, you know, they have their ups and downs and they have their like connection.
Right.
And in this, I feel like nobody's trusted, and which is great. They like that's what they do so well in this movie is like you can't trust anybody, and like no character really trusts anybody else. And that's probably my most like positive takeaway is that aged well.
It does a really good job
overall,
of like building like this sense of paranoia in the characters,
Right.
and obviously them all playing like they're coming to the end of the rope at any time, especially Leonardo DiCaprio's character is fucking gone off the deep end, and he does a really good job with that. But even like Matt Damon's character, like anytime they feel the walls closing in on him, which could be at any time, because what makes this movie good is that it's just this giant web of like lies and deception and paranoia and like crime and corruption. It's like this, it's this big tangled fucking rat's nest, this rat king where all their tails are locked together, and that's part of what makes it intriguing to watch. Because Mary watched it with me and she enjoyed it, for the most part, and that's one of the redeeming quality. Like, this movie is good. I struggle with it slightly because it's like,
right.
I have a fun, like I was saying, I came off as a hater when it first came out, but kind of for BS reasons, because I was, hating on it because it was popular versus a movie I liked. But over that like left a stank in my mouth. But then over the rewatches over the years, I'm like, yeah, this movie's fine. Like, it's not, I don't hate it, but it's not all that. It's definitely like, it's a fun movie, and it's got a fun plot, and it's got great like direction, and in the actual acting element of it,
Right.
and the acting, all the performances are extremely charismatic and watchable and energetic, you know what I mean? So it's just like it's entertaining that you don't stop and realize just how much of a fucking mess it kind of is, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
It's like you're so enthralled by like Matt Damon being like, oh, Matt Damon being a fucking crooked cop, and then Jack Nicholson's like, yeah, I'm a fucking mob boss and all this, and so the whole time they like, I don't know, I feel like it's an illusion. They're like, look at this, and then
I think like you said, direction is like the strongest part. I mean, it's Scorsese, so you're gonna you're gonna get some high caliber acting and directing, but it was each scene like didn't help to smooth or bolster the next scene. It just kind of like, it's like I can think of, even now just watching this 2 days ago, I can think of big scenes that happen, but then all the little stuff between that the connective tissue, it just feels weak. And holy cannoli, dude, the freaking love triangle in this was
frustrating,
so garbage. That it hurt my soul.
Even
man.
my wife was like, what? She's like,
yeah, no,
she's leaving it. Like, how is she even in contact with Leonardo DiCaprio? And then why is she? She's just like fucking him now. Like, what?
dude. And like, it's like, Victoria said this is the worst movie she's ever seen with a therapist in it. Like that.
Mary was like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, this chick.
I would hope. I would imagine that Mary also would like have some concern, because it's like she was terrible. And oh my god, I don't know. It's nitpicky to get this way, but it's also like the Boston accent that she portrayed was hilarious. It would fluctuate. We needed like
some words would be like
counter,
heavy Boston.
Dude.
Yeah, just
you'd be
out
like,
of nowhere.
Super like, I get you peeled, and like you'd be like, okay, cool, and then it would literally, she'd be like, all right, so what brought you in today? What are you here for? And then it would just be like super thick Boston, like get a cup of coffee, like
coffee.
Like, all right, like it's like that, and that's obviously Scorsese just uses the best take, and so the consistency doesn't matter, and that doesn't take me out of a movie. That doesn't like it. It's noticeable.
It's not gonna ruin it for me.
But it's not gonna
everything else comes together.
Yeah.
But
man, that was my biggest takeaway. If you could just you literally could cut 100% of her character You could cut 100% of her character out of this movie,
You
and it would flow. It would flow.
You could
exactly
literally
identical.
just have her. Well, you cut out everything to do with her and her and Leonardo DiCaprio, and just have her be, Matt Damon's girlfriend. Like she works as a plot device for him to like he's trying to get everything he wants, and then she kind of finds him out at the end. But even her conclusion to that story is never really fully concluded because we were like, okay, so what is the point? Because Costa again comes to her and is like, if something happens to me, open this envelope. And then she never does. It never shows it in the movie because the envelope she gets is something that he mails to fucking Matt Damon's character as blackmail, essentially.
I have that written down in here.
And I'm like, so the whole time me and Mary are like, so the envelope is what? Just the same information? Is it, I'm pregnant with your baby actually? Like, why does it matter? Like, why is that a plot point? Because it's never important. Because even if you're like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be her revelation, it doesn't amount to anything. And so it's just like, that's just another scene that they were in together that was unnecessary. It's like you could have cut off a half an hour runtime of this, but just cutting all their shit.
It's the one time that Scorsese tried to make a more involved love interest in a movie. Because like all of his movies, women are just kind of there.
Yeah, he's trying to make her.
They don't really
except for Goodfellas. I mean, even in Goodfellas, the wife, remember, she's for some of it. Yeah, no, you're right.
I guess that's true. Towards the end, she's there to help like fuel his paranoia.
She's
fuel
very
his, like,
proactive.
Escalation.
She even takes on a voiceover at some point we talked about.
Right. And that's cool. And that's like but she does not have like necessarily an arc.
Yeah,
in Goodfellas.
Yeah, historically, you're absolutely right.
Right. He's not even even in Wolf of Wall Street, you can argue like, she's in it. His wife's in it often, and she has more of an arc, but it's still similarly as like, vapid and not. It's like, it's not a super great conclusion. Anyways,
right.
It's so funny to watch him try to do that, and he kind of fumbled over it.
I feel bad, like shitting on this movie a little bit, mainly because
I do too. Yeah,
because it's like a lot of people really do like The Departed, and it's like it's popular and it's Scorsese, but this time watching it, I felt like it was way more. All the flaws were just way more noticeable to me.
And that,
even more so. This is probably only my third time watching or something, because second time watching, I was like, all right, that movie's not as bad as I originally thought. And then watching it again, I'm like, well, I mean, it's not great, but it's like, it's fine. It's got moments, but it feels like a much younger, inexperienced filmmaker trying to emulate Martin Scorsese than actually, Scorsese fucking 30, 40 years into his career almost. And
yeah, and he's literally is like, he's the person to call for a crime drama for this type of movie.
Yeah, fast paced.
He set the benchmark.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that might be why this viewing of it, I'm like, it doesn't hold up at all, because freaking Goodfellas, it holds up so well. And I guess maybe because it's like, it's a larger story. This is.
But even Wolf of Wall Street, I feel like has 1,000 times better pacing and editing to like go from scene to scene transitions. And that movie actually has a lot more improvisational moments because it's more, it's kind of a comedy in its moments. They let them do a fair amount, especially with like Jonah Hill and stuff, fair amount of improvisation. And but it's like I feel like there was a much firmer grasp on not only the editing but like what the final project was going to look like, because with The Departed, there's like so many scenes where it's like Scorsese's like trademark fast dolly shot is there for no reason. It's just like, it's literally like Alec Baldwin being like, yeah, what's up, motherfucker, and it just zooms in on his face, and then it zooms over to Marky Mark, and he's like, yeah, fuck you, go fuck yourself, I'm Marky Mark, being a snark. And
dude, the whole time we were watching this,
he's the best though. I mean, he's terrible, but he's so good because it's just he's just got all the one-liners.
I think,
know
and
what
I
I mean?
think he was having the most fun. So he's a Boston native, and so getting to do this movie, like it's like I'm pretty sure in the interview he said it was his first Scorsese picture, and he was like super excited to do like a
you
gangster
can tell he's
film.
having fun because there's even a shot when
Yeah.
they're all under the bridge and Leonardo DiCaprio like punches him and they get in a fight, but he's laughing in one shot, and I don't think it's intentional because the next shot he's like, "Yeah, fuck you," and he's all angry again from getting punched. But like you see him, he's like laughing, like, "Well, come at me, bro." Like you know, he's just goofing around.
This movie had a lot of, so like you said with Wolf of Wall Street, Scorsese, this was such a loosey-goosey script. There was a lot of rewrites and a lot of
It feels
improv
like it because it
on
feels
set, yeah.
it feels.
But I
Again,
don't
it
think
feels
it's
like
as
they
tight.
didn't get
I
enough
think
coverage. They didn't get enough
Right.
coverage. It feels like they just
Yeah.
didn't know how to stitch it together, and they somehow pulled it off. And so all the awards are like, wow, they salvaged that movie with some interesting editing. Like you have to do the super jarring, like choppy editing to make these scenes work because you don't have enough footage to cut to anything. That's what it feels. I don't know if that's true, but that's what it felt like watching it. Like they intentionally are like, okay, we got to make this seem intense. Let's have this choppy footage, or let's have the music just absolutely stop on cue, just
Dude,
which is fine.
okay, yeah,
I'm
that
fine
happened.
with
That happened a few times. I actually, so those were things that I noticed that I liked. There's the time when he
They're cool.
the music's going and he flips his phone open and it's like cuts and it's like serious.
That's
It kind of like it drew my attention. But then in my notes I wrote like, where is the music? Where's the score? There's nothing like motivating this. It's like,
fucking
dude,
hated the score.
it's terrible. Okay, I feel so bad. We're really shitting on this movie. I think it's almost like we're shitting on this movie because
At the end
we're a
of the
little
day,
astonished that it's kind of this bad. It's almost kind of like
It's
it almost
such-
feels like it was in production nightmare. So it had production hell. It originally was slated for like 30 million, and then
Sorry, Travis. I know you
actors,
liked it.
I know, and I'm super. I like it too.
I
It's
like
one
it
of
too.
those,
That's the thing. It is. I enjoy it, and it's fun, and it's
it's
got a lot of good qualities. I think we're just surprised that it's like it's so
there's so many
highly
glaring issues.
it's so highly regarded. It's some of the best actors and some of the best filmmakers in the industry. Going back and watching it, it's just like, wow, this is really not as good as this is not. Fucking best picture, Martin Scorsese fucking triumph that I feel like it was remembered in film lexicon.
It is. I mean, for even for me, I can't. And I think that's also my bias here. Is I'm like, I remember this movie being like,
It was huge. I
Being
had a
cool.
Departed. I had a
I
big
loved
Departed
it.
poster in my bedroom. Do you remember that in high school? Like a massive one, because it was made out of canvas, and it was pretty cool. I just liked it because it was a cool big poster.
it is a cool movie. Like this is so like I watched some other just YouTube essays, and it's like people are like, this is my favorite Martin Scorsese movie, and I'm like, I get that. I wonder if it's like you're just holding on to the nostalgia of it, maybe, or like.
I mean, it's got like I said, it's got an energy, and it's aside from the romance subplot, it's got a good.
I like the cat and mouse a lot more than
it's got a good
Catch Me If You
intrigue.
Can.
Yeah, it's got a good intrigue. It's got a good it's got high stakes. It's it moves along. It's not. I don't think it's well paced, but it moves along at a quick pace that you're always. I feel like you're never left to stew in anything. There's no big moments that really land as super impactful.
Yeah,
And everything that is impactful is only impactful because it's so jarring. And spoiler alert, the best part of the movie is the last 30 minutes.
The last 15 minutes.
The last
honestly.
15 minutes, even. I mean, I think from when the captain gets thrown off the roof, everything after that is really good in my opinion.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
But
I love
specifically when they meet up and there's they meet up on the roof and then Leonardo DiCaprio gets shot in the head out of the blue. Those are the moments you remember because you're like, holy fuck, they just shot Leonardo DiCaprio in the brain. They just blew his head out and then he's just sitting there all dead unceremoniously. in
it
the
makes me
elevator.
that like watching it with Victoria, she was like, oh my God. Like she had that same reaction I did the first time I saw it, where I
Yeah.
was like, I think that's the hype, is because
That's
I
what you
just
remember.
I remember being like, this movie was like daring. You know, I was just
Yeah.
like,
They
this is
just
wild. Like you
shot
never
the
see,
main character in the face, the good
you
guy,
never see,
as
you
he
never
was
see
about to win.
you never see all the main characters die. Like it's not something that happens. And it's like, and it's cool, the foreshadowing and stuff. It's like, I understand, like, Martin Scorsese is still a good director, so it still has a lot of like decent foreshadowing. Just like you said, there's
it's
nothing
still
that
better
really
than
lands.
75% of the other garbage out there. But it's I don't know. Came out the same year as Prestige too. I was just looking, and that only got that got a little bit of love, but not much either.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, well, so I actually, the first movie that came to mind, this isn't really like, if you liked this movie, watch this movie per se. I think if you liked this movie, you should watch the original, which I intend to do.
I want to,
'Cause
especially after
I-
our foray into Hong Kong movies with like The Killing and stuff.
right.
The Killer, pardon. Made me really want to rewatch or watch fully the original. I've only seen like a scene from it, but I want to watch it. Infernal Affairs is a Hong Kong movie, which again, this is a remake. We're doing remake month.
Yeah. And I
Surprisingly.
heard it's good. So like,
That's why it's like,
you know,
do all the good ideas and the bad ideas come from the original? I'm curious, because apparently they pull from parts from the whole trilogy. I guess there's a whole trilogy of the original, and they pull certain storylines. So I'm wondering if like that love angle is like an extra storyline that they pull. I don't know.
right. And that
So I'm curious.
that makes sense.
I want to watch it.
That makes sense why it does kind of feel, it feels like, because it does feel like two completely different movies are being made. You could theoretically like cut this in half and make two movies where you never meet the other character, and it's all just kind of that. It feels like is that like the, I guess, all of The Wire. It gave me a lot of The Wire vibes.
That'd actually be cool if it was like
know.
a whole movie, like talking about protagonist. Make an hour and a half long movie following Matt Damon as the protagonist, then make another hour and a half long movie, like a companion movie. They should do that more often, where it's like
I know,
two movies,
the scenes intersect.
that take place during the same time.
They've done that, right? What was that?
They do it in TV shows.
There's a movie. Oh my God. Okay, it'll come to me. But anyways, I wanted to say two quick things that are kind of interesting about this movie. Martin Scorsese, when he won the award at the Directors Guild, he said, "This is the first movie I've ever made that has a plot," and I thought that was kind of funny, because it is a lot. I mean, the plot drives this a lot more than I feel like the characters.
Yeah,
you know? I mean,
a lot
the
of his other
characters
movies are definitely
interesting.
character driven as opposed to plot driven.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's kind of that's funny for him to say. He's kind of ribbing himself. But and then another thing that's wackadoo, Scorsese he didn't know this was a remake. So
Really?
if you want to if you don't want to feel too bad, the fucking director himself didn't know he was doing a remake until into production. Like he was, they
just got the script and he's like, cool.
100%. He gave the script to Leonardo DiCaprio, because they just got done working on Aviator, and then he gave the script to Leonardo, and then he like got Matt Damon, and then it was like Jack Nicholson, and then he got those guys on board, and then in production they went through, they had the script, they broke it down, everyone like went over it, did their parts, and then during filming he was like, oh, this is like, they were like, someone on set was like, oh, the similarities to like, you know, the foreign film that this is based off of. And he's like, oh, I didn't know that. And so he avoided the original altogether and just made his own movie.
Yeah, you would need to.
Right. And I was like, well, how do you feel about that? That's kind of interesting to me. It's like, it lets you make your own movie, you know, put your own mark on it. But it also, like, there's certain things in there where I'm like, he had to have known, but I guess it's so interesting, right?
Yeah, I feel that is interesting. I do feel like because of that, though, that explains some of there's like that disconnect for me. And I think it's because it's not his fault, because at that point you would want to avoid it to make it your own thing. But it's lost in translation because the person who for sure knows that it is a remake or a reinterpretation or whatever you want to call it is the screenwriter. And so like whoever wrote the screenplay, which nobody cares about writers, sorry guys.
I know.
Whoever
yeah,
that fucking guy was. It's he wrote it with like probably all these intentions and like themes and whatever, and then Scorsese's like, okay, I'm gonna take it and make it this way.
Yeah.
But without knowing, I don't know, like he's interpreting his own themes. It's interesting. It does make it more of an interesting like interpretation because he doesn't care where it comes from, just what it is and what it could be as a final product, as a filmmaker. Like what vision do I have for this film? It is kind of interesting. I think be an interesting way to approach some stuff. I wonder if you ever watched it like after the fact.
I would imagine Martin Scorsese's like he's the biggest film nerd in the world, so I'm sure that he watched it afterwards.
He's just like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, right. No, dude, he knows so much about movies. I love his knowledge, and that's
Can I gotta dump some more because we're gonna say
lay it on me, man.
I never finished telling you why I fucking hated the score so much. It was terrible. Like it was just like the generic guitar score in between classic Scorsese, soundtrack. Because there is a difference.
Right.
So I feel
he's king of soundtrack. Even though he gets mocked constantly for like reusing the same songs, which to me personally, I'm like he likes to use the same song and he uses it really well. If
one scene they use a song and then that same song is used later, and there's some relation to the scenes that are supposed to make you like come full circle or have some kind of thought about the two. This movie, in my opinion, did not do that. It's like
I know, yeah. When did they use that?
They use the Dropkick Murphy song, like
it's Dropkick, yeah.
Is it Dropkick or
is it Flogging Molly? We never looked. We didn't look it up.
No one knows. They're the same band.
Zach Keen, you let us know, bud.
Let us know. You never listen to this. Unless you do. What's up, Zach? You should listen to this. But they use that like several times. They use the Rolling Stones song like several times. But I feel like they didn't have enough songs to do what he normally does, which is like the whole movie is a soundtrack, whether it's like old classical music or 70s rock and roll or whatever. But in between, this had like plucky, like indie guitar that like really just been like, yeah, and I'm emotional. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. And it was really noticeable to me. It really just like made me just like took me totally out of the scenes. Especially it was like in all the scenes with Leonardo DiCaprio and the therapist. I forget her name, but it's like all those scenes had this like plucky dramatic guitar that were I did not like. But I don't want anyone to think that I hate this movie though, because I don't.
Yeah.
It was just sad because I had a good time watching it, even though, it's flawed. It's definitely it's deeply flawed, but it's not. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just not a great movie. It's a fine movie.
I mean, it's one I recommend someone to see so I can ask them how they feel, because Travis, when he watched it, I was kind of anticipating him to think it was a little weaker than he really liked it, and I understand. I am just like, I'm coming off of like the expectation. I don't know. This is my
like total fucking up our own ass, smelling our own farts, film nerds, right? Like pretentious film nerds. Because if my wife ever listens to this, which she won't, she would be like, everything you guys just talked about for the last 40 minutes, no one else gives a fuck about that or even notices it. And I always say, well, you notice it, just maybe not. You notice it subconsciously, and you do or don't like it, and it affects you. But as people who watch a lot of films and like study and critique films as art, we are more aware of, like, for example, the editing or the score or the choices behind, You know, like why? Because in filmmaking, everything is usually done with a purpose. It's like, why did they decide to do this extreme dolly shot on this scene? Like, what are they trying to tell me with that information?
I mean, every shot in a movie has been manipulated by a group of people, and so it's like
And
there is
usually
intention behind
there's-
everything.
There's weeks, if not months, of planning for for
Right.
everything, and so.
And if there's
it
not planning,
doesn't happen
it's
by
like
accident.
yeah, exactly. It just doesn't. So there's happy accidents that happen when you're getting a shot with like environmental or a performance.
Well, and a lot of
And
movies are really raw and loose. Like, I mean, we were talking about
Right.
Holy Motors.
Or even look, Dog Day, dude. Dog Day is a big one where I'm like,
Yeah.
Dog Day comes together so tight, and I wanted to segue from Dog Day Afternoon to Al Pacino was
Dog
supposed to
Day
be Jack
Afternoon.
Nicholson's character.
Oh, really?
Or yeah, the dog's date. But
Dog's Date Afternoon.
yeah, so Al Pacino was gonna be Frank Costello, and it like he dropped out for a different movie. I can't remember, probably like Jack and Jill.
I'm
And then he
I'm so glad he didn't. I like Al
You know-
Pacino, but I fucking love Jack Nicholson. So.
I think yes, I was gonna say
He would have
can
done
we-
a great job too, though. Obviously,
We can give our glowing recommend for Jack Nicholson being just deplorable, like just terrible. He is a filthy human being, and I like that. I like that extreme. It's like it's one of those things where I'm like, it's a bummer because it doesn't stand up very well. Like in Wolf of Wall Street, they're like terrible people. Like they play really bad characters, but you don't really necessarily root for them. Like the excess is kind of cool to see, and that's sensationalized.
it's
But it's like you
fascinating
don't really root.
You understand
but
their
in-
motives and stuff, and
Yeah, but
this,
it's like I don't know. Well,
he's
I
a
guess-
good villain, but he's a kind of a two-dimensional villain for sure.
Yeah, it almost like
He's
I
like,
kind of wish that he could have been even more because in an interview, Jack Nicholson talks about what he was gonna do with his character and how much he got edited around, because a lot of scenes, like especially, I mean the scene where he's like drawing that picture of the rat in the tower, and it's like he's just like, you see him going off and he like gets the gun out and he's like being like a funky monkey. It's like he's just
he's like all paranoid and he's doing the rat
Yeah.
cheese thing. He's like, just
Yeah,
all
that's-
these fucking rats.
yeah.
And it's kind of funny. It is the small mannerisms where he sneaks back up on Leonardo DiCaprio,
Yeah.
and you think he's gonna scare him, but then he's like, forgot my cigarette, and like,
Yeah.
he's just super weird and like.
it's
paranoid.
all improv, dude. All that is improv.
I
And-
liked that a lot actually.
and
I
the
wanted more of that.
scene I like the scene that and right at the beginning to kind of, it's like he is a good villain. I really love I love how like he is like disgusting, and it's amazing. So when he kills the man and the woman at the beach, and he's like she fell funny.
Yeah.
That scene, he originally there's like 5 minutes of him talking about her and like just these weird, like him just going off like, oh, she fell funny, and then he's like, all right, now strip her down, I'm gonna fuck her again. And then he kind of stops. And he smiles to the guy.
way.
He smiles to the guy and he goes, just kidding. And he like gives like a smirk and a weird like, he just is fucking disjointed and insane. And then he like gets down by her and he like whispers to her and he's like, he's just like,
It was funny because
he's like,
I
"Oh, great."
literally
And the guy's like,
commented
"Dude."
to Mary, I was like, I feel like this is just how Jack Nicholson is. I feel like he just wandered into set, especially during that scene with him and Leonardo DiCaprio at the bar. And that makes sense. I wish they would have left that in. Then you make a third movie that's just
Yeah,
Jack
that's just
Nicholson,
him.
Frank
And that's-
Costello's character.
No, you make it Jack Nicholson and fucking the kid, as the kid, and you just make a Goodfellas remake, like a Goodfellas, like,
Essentially.
mini plot, because it's basically just that. It's kind of funny because he kind of baits you into it. I expected when I first saw this to get that kind of movie. I didn't really know what to expect in it. So like when he's like a little kid and he's talking to him, I thought, oh, here comes another Goodfellas style. Him growing up and getting really tight with it, and then getting into the police. But it's kind of cool that it just like jumps right into it. But then I don't know. It also kind of it takes away like the relationship. I don't really feel a strong connection between, Matt Damon's character
No,
and
especially since they're kids. He's like, they treat him like they just became, they've been like,
Right.
oh, you're on my payroll instead of you're like this father figure I never had.
right.
Because even when at the end he finds out he's the FBI and he betrays him at the end, and then in the warehouse and like shoots him, it's like you like, it is a nice scene because he's like, you were gonna give me up, but it's like he's more looking for his self-interest. There's not that emotional weight of you basically raised me into this family and then you betrayed me. Like, it's really more like, did you tell the FBI about me because I'm a cop, I have my own life, and now I work for you? And it's like, no,
Yeah.
dude, you've joined the police force for him. You know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like that's not there all the way. You know what I mean? But it could have been, and that could have been even more of a
That would have pushed it.
would have been
made this movie a lot tighter.
deeper character motivations for Matt Damon's character, which he was still a pretty good character, but
I'm really bummed that we didn't get to. The city wasn't a character, man, and he like Scorsese can do that really well, but I
felt like he was gonna do that because at the beginning it was very like going down. It's playing the Dropkick Murphys. They're like doing the cuts, and he's like, "Oh, you salty piece of trash," and he's like, they're kind
he
of
shows
dabbling
like
in
old
it.
footage. Oh
Yeah,
my god,
he goes to jail, right at the beginning, and it's like they're in the police academy, and he's in jail, and all this stuff, and they're rising through the ranks, and then it's like, that's it.
he uses it's just kind of it felt lazy too because it's like he uses like the same set again for no specific reason. It's like not like
The
a
warehouse,
It's not like it's not like a
building. Yeah.
it's not like a headquarters or anything. It's not like it's just like a random building where I'm like, is that the only vacant building in Boston? Like,
Yeah, it's a cool one that you could get on the roof of.
Yeah,
I do gotta say, I don't know what it is in me, but I get a little bit hard when in movies people fall from rooftops or are thrown from rooftops, and I want more of it done well. Like, this was done okay, but I can't think of a good movie where like someone falls from a rooftop and it's like totally satisfying.
I can tell you exactly what movie it is.
Are you
and that's
thinking-
called the laugh out loud comedy in Bruges.
No, that is the best. That is the best.
That's
one.
the best. Yeah.
It is the best.
the ROWL whatever rolling on the floor. Rolf and
The funniest movie
in
I've ever
Bruges.
seen when he attempts to commit suicide off the bell tower and
And
lives
yeah. I mean,
just long
I guess
enough to suffer.
he successfully commits suicide, but then it's like it's just brutal.
Yeah, I think the word you're looking for is hilarious.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But even like Good Time has got like a good scene of a guy falling off, like he falls off like the fourth story apartment.
Oh,
But they show those scenes in the trailers.
yeah.
Because you got the shot of this of it's not Martin Sheen. Why do I always say that? Is it?
No, it's Martin Sheen.
I don't know why I always mix him up.
Yeah.
When he's like, he gets thrown from the roof and it's the shot of him falling. There's like a quick shot of that in the trailer. And then like same with Good Time, there's a shot, but you never see the landing. And it's like, that draws me in, man. It does. It hooks me. Yeah. I think it's cool. It's cool imagery. And they're like, we just got to be on the roof in Boston to show the Boston skyline, because he's like, meet me where he was thrown off the roof.
Right.
And we'll meet up there and I'll beat your face in, which is kind of nice. I mean, that's Matt Damon's best acting when he's like, you fucking piece of shit, and then he's like, just kill me. Just fucking kill me. And
he does. He goes great. Like, it's great from like, he's so cocky and sure of himself through the whole movie. And
that's
then
what I'm saying. The last 15 minutes are
vulnerability.
so good. All the headshots. And then you're like, oh, it's got the funeral, and you're like, I want him to get the Medal of Merit. And you're like,
even then,
he kind
even
of gets it, but he's like, you fucking you piece of shit.
Even that's like kind of manipulating. Like, that's
is.
all he knows, dude. Yeah, it's great.
And then seeing Mark Wahlberg with his little booties on and his gloves on in his apartment is pretty satisfying. And then he's like, all right. And he gets shot in the fucking face. Like, it's great.
It kind of, I mean, it's not a satisfying
the
ending,
ending
so.
swoops in. Like, I think I gave this like 3.5 stars because I think it is a above average. But if it wasn't for so many things, it would have been like, I would have not given it a second thought. If it wasn't for the acting, but it's like if it wasn't for the last 20 minutes, they really get that's that extra half a star for me for sure. That kind of because that's what sticks with you is the ending. Like it sticks the ending even if it doesn't resolve the stupid love plot line.
Right. And it's great, man.
Anyway, it's if you haven't seen it, you should watch it because it is
Right.
It's not a bad film. It's just it's a flawed movie. So I want to give us your opinions. Why don't I read it? Why don't I read Reddit?
We have some Reddits. Do we get a few comments?
I think we got a couple. Let's see.
What do you find? What do you find people have to say?
So, let's see. Somebody corrected me because I wrote it wrong originally. Oh, never mind. There's only one real comment.
Oh.
Because the other one's mine. So, and it's interesting because this person kind of feels the same way we do. So, I don't know. Maybe we're not in the minority. So, anyway, Wiseapt says, here's a thought exercise. If this film was not directed by Scorsese and didn't have big name stars, would we be talking about it 16 years later? Conversely, do the big name stars give it that truly special something that made it an Oscar winner and a truly classic film? Does anybody even really think about this movie anymore? Great filmmaking along with great storytelling should create something, an epiphany, a catharsis, insight into the human condition. What was created here? I'm not saying it wasn't a great film. It was. But it was not a brilliant film either. It was overhyped in the U.S., mostly because of who was involved, and all the more so for being a remake of an already great Hong Kong film. If you're a guy like Scorsese and you're already going to solo yourself with doing a remake, why not aim a bit higher and find a way to take it to another level? By the way, one of my favorite movie scenes of all time is the beginning of Infernal Affairs when Andy Lau and Tony Leung are in the stereo store talking about the speakers. So damn cool. I'm not sure the Departed got there, and the Oscar attention was more of a nod to Martin Scorsese's previous work than this one. Thanks for commenting. I would say that's probably true. It's like a lot of it. Wow. This feels like
They should start a podcast. They're great. That was very elegant. Thank you. Oh, yeah, totally.
It does. It feels like this is like rewarding your, your scorecard so far. Like this is your previous work. It's like when a filmmaker gets wins for something finally after all these years, even though it's not even their most award worthy or whatever. Well,
and that's the like Leonardo DiCaprio didn't even get nominated because they didn't want to like pile on like. Yeah. So it just kind of like because he went from like The Aviator to that to Blood Diamond, so it's like
and I think Blood Diamond was that same year too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I 100% think that like this movie stood the test time for a lot of people. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. Like I would, if somebody was watching it, I'd catch it just for the cool scenes because there are a lot of good scenes. It's just for me, it's how they're pieced together to make a whole is not fully effective as like just from a filmmaking standpoint of view, but like the commenter just said, what are we left with there? There's not some like what, don't be a rat.
Yeah, right.
You know
and it's like it's one of those. It's supposed to be so. It's actually kind of it's endearing and also frustrating. Scorsese's an old school director. This is a movie. Crime doesn't pay. That's true. That literally is it.
And not every movie has to be like this. Like I was shaken to my core by its themes and its character. Like it can. Like this movie feels like it is a fun action thriller movie that could have been directed by like Tony Scott or something, but it wanted just to be a little bit more of like a prestige type, what Scorsese's known for, like a big more like more artistic, grand, epic film. And what happened is it fell like right in the middle, and it kind of ends up being a little disjointed because of that. Because this is directed by Tony Scott, who did like Man on Fire and like fucking
Did he do Precinct? I don't remember, dude.
What's the one? Top Gun. It's Top Gun is what I was thinking of.
Oh yeah.
But he's dead now. He killed himself. But
Oh, that's brutal. Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It was when I was living in L.A. He jumped off the bridge there, remember?
Oh. Damn.
But because he had brain cancer. But if someone like, I feel like this movie in someone's hands like that, like a good, like A-tier action director that's not like full action but knows how to make like those good, solid, an R-rated, just late 90s action movie like Michael Bay before he was full-blown Michael Bay back in like the Bad Boys days.
Yeah.
Something like that where it was like still a fun, cohesive, just a fun movie that was light. Boom. But I feel like because Scorsese, I don't know, is and all these big names, it's like trying to be something it's not a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the budget on it was it got up to 100 million, and that like that was like over 50% went to like crew and cast, like straight up. So I think it just kind of became inflated, and it was more of like a good time on set than fully flushing out the film. Like you said, there's not much filler. I think they just got on, they shot all their stuff, and then they just like they got in, got out.
Yeah.
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 It grossed 300.
Yeah.
So,
I figured it grossed a lot because, I mean, again, it was very popular. Because unlike the last Best Picture winner we talked about, Birdman, it's like there was a certain amount of hype around Birdman, but your average moviegoer, I feel like, did not go see that movie. Your average moviegoer, especially back in, 2006, definitely saw fucking Departed, and especially when it came out, like everyone watched The Departed. It's like my parents, but then again, I asked everyone at work, and no one had fucking seen it. So
yeah, and I wonder if that's like an age group or something. I don't know. Everyone...
bless her heart. I hope you listen to this, Drady, if you listen. But after I brought up The Departed, she had the gall. She knows it bugs me too, and I think she just fucking with me a little bit. She had the gall to ask me what I thought about Avengers Endgame.
Noise.
But I was just like, yeah, it's fine.
And that, dude, oh right, yeah,
it does what it does fine, but I just don't like what it does.
But it's actually that's really fun to think about too, because I don't know if I said this earlier, right? This movie reminiscent to me in the same vein of like it being like fucking like hyper masculine is like Fight Club.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like I don't know why I compare those two. They're not like the same movie at all. But I like for the cultural shift and like everybody talked about it. It's like Fight Club totally like it I mean, from the last time I saw it, it like aged really well. And so
Fight Club in my opinion is a far superior movie.
And I agree. I just think that like that everyone talked about that movie. It was like this huge, like every fucking, like you had the poster of The Departed, you had a poster of Fight Club. Every fucking frat kid.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, every fucking frat kid had a poster of Fight Club. Everyone was like that. Everyone talked about Fight Club. It was like that's the bit. It still kind of is. And I think like The Departed it struck lightning again in that same vein, but it just tapered off. I don't think it's gonna hold up like you said, like the Reddit.
Well, it came in
talking about it.
Yeah, it came in at like kind of a perfect time, because it's like in the mid 2000s, like it was, it was just like this cool gritty action movie with cool gritty crime movie with big stars attached, and like a big filmmaker. It wasn't trying to be particularly like challenging. Wasn't trying to like, it was fine. It was like probably one of Scorsese's closest things to like a big blockbuster movie. You know what I mean? It's just like making this big movie with like, because it's got wide appeal, and at the time, it was cool. It was badass.
It was like it was almost like 20 years since he directed. Or not 20 years, like. It was like 10 years between that and Casino. So it's like, kind of getting another Scorsese. I think people were just ready for
Yeah.
another Scorsese because it's like The Irishman did really well, So I
yeah.
think people kind of
I really liked The Irishman,
Right.
but people didn't watch
Anyways.
it because it was too fucking long.
right. Let's end the theatrical release and shit. But anyways, let's listen to Travis's thing as we're running over
All right.
time now.
Can you? Let's hopefully you can hear it. Huh? You ready?
Yeah.
Hey guys, The Departed is a great crime drama with gangster violence reminiscent of Scorsese's Goodfellas. This movie has an original storyline with great actors. The scene where Jack Nicholson breaks off Leonardo DiCaprio's cast, then continues to hit his arm, reminded me of the great hobbling scene in Misery, when Kathy Bates takes a sledgehammer to Jane Kahn's ankles. While discussing The Departed with Jordan at his work, other societal topics came up, which sparked a good conversation about things presented in this movie and things not. For me, that's more evidence of this movie's greatness, and that it creates talking points which can be discussed after. The overtly offensive language in this movie shines light on a reality that gets glossed over in most crime dramas. Jack Nicholson's character alone says so many offensive things with potent words, one can see this movie is not appropriate for children, for example. So my question for you two is, what do you think about censoring hateful speech in cinema, and do you think it'll ever happen? Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Travis. So you didn't hear any of that at all either.
No, not even close. And it's funny because we literally spent like a half hour before this trying to figure it out, and it totally it didn't work this time. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, I read the transcript.
I'll figure out a way to just do it on my computer like last time, even if it fucks the video up there, but I don't care.
Well, let's do it. We'll run a test again. So, anyways,
Figure it
so Travis, thank you for calling in.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
I have the text to speech, and I read it, and
Again, Travis, I'm glad you really like this movie. I feel bad because we are generally really positive about a lot of the movies we like. We watch a lot of movies that a lot of people do not like, but we talk about nicely. And I do feel bad for like mostly shitting on this movie this whole time.
Yeah. When you come in, Travis, we'll talk about it.
Dude,
some more
I still gave it 3.5 stars because it's like deep down, I think that its pros. I think what it does at the end of the day outweigh its cons. But anyway.
And it performance-wise, like I literally like can watch. Like I was going through just clips on YouTube, watching scenes because it's like, it's really entertaining.
Super fucking entertaining. It's just not necessarily a well put together, from a filmmaking standpoint of view.
It's,
and at the end of the day, it's like it's not.
It's not a movie I really
structurally.
Want
if it was a building, I wouldn't want to live in it, but I would have a party in it.
Yeah, true. I'd get thrown off the top.
I would definitely get thrown off the building, but I wouldn't bring my kid in there because it would collapse on me probably.
Yeah, right. It would just be playing one Rolling Stone song the entire time.
The whole thing
everywhere,
swaying and like plaster falling off the walls.
But anyways,
your question.
God. Yeah, your question's like heavy, man. It's a softball question on us.
I don't think they should ever censor hate speech in movies, and I don't know if they ever will. I think it all comes down to how it's used, because I do see more and more pushback about characters being like offensive or being racist, and people immediately latch onto that without realizing that like this is a character. I think as long as it's used to portray a person who, it's not portrayed in a good light, and it's like obviously this is not a person that's meant to be looked at. I think the most recent example is all the controversy around Licorice Pizza, about how you've heard that about like there's the guy who's super he makes the super racist Asian voice constantly.
Oh, he does. Oh, really? I haven't heard this yet. No, I haven't seen the movie or heard it.
Watch it, but he does like really like the really terrible. It's like Charlie in that episode of Sunny where he's doing the super broken English in the Asian voice. But it's and everyone's like, wow, I can't believe they did that. Like, fucking cancel Licorice Pizza or whatever. But, and like, did no one realize that, like, all the characters thought that guy was a douchebag? Like, there are people like that. Like, he's a douchebag. And it's played like he's a douchebag. And, like, in this
actually,
he's the villain.
that's the thing though. He isn't. So when it comes to language in cinema, it evolves. I think every year
Yeah.
we change from our like, so we keep some derogatory language and that transfers throughout time.
Right.
But this movie's kind of interesting. I noticed there's a lot of like it is like super homophobic and like so just like they like the homos, that they use and like gay and like,
constantly.
like fucking each other and stuff. And it's like it's so fitting for that time period though. Like
It really
watching
is.
movies in that like in the
It's
early
unfortunate
2000s.
yeah, even the quote unquote good guys are throwing around the F word.
And dude, the F words in this, like every time the F word happened, I physically was like, "Oh
Yeah,
God, that's not in movies anymore."
I know,
and
and we're not
it's
talking
interesting.
about fuck.
No, because fuck is fucking every day, dude.
great.
Nobody in the world. My grandma will say fuck, dude. No one cares about fuck. We're talking about the hard F, like that one that's like
right at the beginning. Jack Nicholson dropped a hard N bomb, and my wife was like, "Whoa!" And I said, "Yeah, I know." Like, but then again, it's like you got to ask yourself, it's like, can I achieve the same effect without it? Because if you can, then there's no point to use it.
Well, and I feel like they could have just fine.
They could have, but
but I think it's interesting because you don't get a character that is supposed to be sensationalized really using words like that nowadays in movies. But I mean, I don't know. It's like there are going to be directors that create characters that use that verbiage and stuff. And I think that will be forever. But it is fascinating to see that like mainstream, because I have a great example for this. Like this is why I loved this question. There's this movie called Just Friends, fucking Ryan Reynolds, back in like what is that, 2006 probably, 2000,
yeah, something like that, 2005, 2006, and it's
2000.
a fun comedy romp.
100% family comedy, and they say the F word, the hard F word, like 3 times in it. Like throughout the whole thing, the two brothers are calling each other that all the time, and I'm like, we were watching it because we were like, oh, let's blast from the past, let's see this dumb rom-com. And totally, like we were both just like,
And
what
it's like
the
a
fuck is going
fun
on?
PG-13.
Totally.
For sure, because especially back in the day, obviously it's like language has changed and the culture around all that has changed, and mostly for the better when it comes to that kind of stuff, for sure.
Always for the better, dude. Really.
For sure. I mean, people call us a bunch of woke dickheads or whatever the fuck, but it's like, yeah, I don't think we should be throwing around the F word unless in art, unless it's used to effectively elicit a certain emotion on purpose. If it's there, because it's
my example on the other spectrum is, and so this is where I'm like, man, dude, trying to navigate that field mine, it is minefield. It's crazy because it's like, anyone who like just blatantly like calls somebody woke that's a whole different podcast, and that's a whole series of like they're using that term to avoid a conversation and like. So anyways,
they heard it on Fox News.
There's an episode, the episode of this It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He drops the hard F word and it works really well. It's really funny, really fucking jarring. I'm not laughing because he said that word, as I'm laughing at how extreme that situation was for him to use that word, and how it like didn't need to be used, and then that becomes the whole topic of conversation.
It's the crux of the whole episode.
Yeah, right.
Is about that, and of course we're talking about hero or hate crime, right?
Right.
That episode, which is a fucking great episode, because it's like
a great episode.
It's recent too. It's not from the era, because there was times when they would, use homophobic language. Earlier on, because again, it wasn't in popular culture, like it wasn't really that big of a deal. For some reason, people didn't think it was a big deal, And but in this Sunny episode, it's a great example, because they really do. It's more recent. They take it and they're like, they use it for comedy, but they're also like they use it to talk about language and like how certain words should not be just, like they're literally there's like
right. And they do
at length.
they like to bring up the
To be
conversation.
well written too, and they drop a hard
It's
N
like-
bomb too.
Right, and
In
they
that episode.
they bring it up like when is it appropriate, what is appropriate to say, and they never really they're really smart at like skirting around an answer. They always
true.
just kind of
Well,
keep the
they,
comedy around.
They'll say
which is
that
fine,
one
'cause
second,
there's-
and then they'll be extremely misogynistic the next
Yeah.
moment. But like that's the joke. It's like, oh, okay, like unfortunately, but it doesn't matter if you're talking shit about a woman or whatever in that, and even though it should matter. And it's like that's kind of like how they use it to their advantage in that, you know what I mean?
right.
When they're talking
But
about
and in,
cut,
and
you
then
know?
in this, yeah, right. And then in this movie, The Departed, they use like really really vulgar and violent language as just like as a character device, and I kind of feel like it also feels slightly dated, but it's like because I don't know, it's supposed to be contemporary times, and the thing that really bothers me too about the Departed is he intermixes right at the beginning, like he's like, "Whoa, Boston, what it used to be like in the '70s," and like they show the old footage of like those like demonstrations, people like coming through in the
Right.
school segregation and everything, and how it's like racism, but then he also kind of tries to throw in like, oh, but there's racism on all sides. People are racist towards Irish and towards Italian, and it's like yeah, but there's one that is definitively
It's literally like
more
the opening monologue. He's
extreme.
like literally
Right.
like, yeah, it's something that the Irish, like
yeah, and I'm like that. It is an interesting point, and I don't know. There are a lot more educated people who talk about it.
Yeah, to be your opening monologue is I think is a bit much because that's like you're
right.
you're not really putting your best foot forward because
No.
it's like that's not what your movie's about. If that's what your movie was about, sure.
And that's why I
explore
wish
that.
Boston. I
Explore
wish
that.
Boston was more important in this movie.
Yeah.
I wish that the history of Boston
Well,
existed in this movie more.
You think it's gonna, because he even says he's like, you're a black guy in boxing, you're already fucked, and it's
Right.
like okay, yeah, it's like subtly like because they obviously this movie's
and the-
not about race.
No,
but it's
they
like-
bring it up a lot
Yeah,
for a movie that has one black guy in it for like 3 scenes. It's kind of silly.
and then they
but
shoot him dead.
Yeah, right. But I mean, yeah. So that like it is a very good question, and it's intense, and I'm actually curious to hear your opinion too, Travis. So
Yeah, me too.
looking forward to chatting with
It's
you.
interesting because it's like I do want to defend. I don't want to be the guy that defends hate speech or anything, but it's like
Well, but yeah.
I want to, as a creator,
complex
as a
character.
creator and a writer myself, I do think that it is important to be able to have characters like, have a complex character that's like, for example, like you can have a guy who is a great dad and a loving father, and he has all these good qualities, but he's also a horrible racist or something. Like, it's like, it doesn't, it's not all these good things. And I think it's like important to have that because there are like so many people like that in life. Like I'll meet people and then I'll think they're great. They're like someone I meet, and then all of a sudden I find out they'll say something super racist to me, and it'll just totally catch me off guard.
Right.
Like, why are
Yeah.
you talking to me about that? But man, I don't know. It's a tough one. I think when used effectively, but
Yeah, it can be used constructively.
But
always.
I do think a lot of it in this movie was probably not necessary.
It's super sensationalized.
Yeah,
that was
it's probably
yeah,
not
that-
necessary. Like I understand he's a bad criminal guy, and it's like maybe if you stuck with it, just him, just being a piece of shit to everyone all the time.
Right.
That's different, but it's not even like 3-dimensional. It's just like how can I make him hated, and that's boring to me. It's like you know, if he
Yeah, dude. There were so many. There were like there were a couple scenes where like as I was watching it, it like would be super like a chill scene. He like knocks on the door and I'm like, open up, homo. Like it's like all these like just they would use it in weird spots too. Where I'm just kind of like
they're yelling at all the firemen. They're like after the meeting, and they're like dead serious. They're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I bet they're all gay. He's like, yeah, I bet they are. He's
I know,
like,
and I'm like,
do you want to make out now?
right? Yeah, they were together. It is. It's dude. They're like on the picnic. They're on the bench, like,
Yeah.
and he's like smiling, looking at the building, and he's like, "Gay fireman."
Yeah.
Oh. And he's like, "I wish they. Oh, I bet their bodies look so nice." Like, I was like, "Yeah, but
They're,
I don't know."
working out at the fire station. I mean, it's again, if you wanted to say something about like, you know, again, like having a conversation about like toxic masculinity and like about all this, that's like they're can't be alone with another man without feeling uncomfortable that like, oh, this feels gay or something, and so I need to like I need to be, homophobic in order to like release this tension or something like that. It's like if that was a plot device or a character building moment, I think that could have been interesting. You know, it's like, but why is it there? I don't know. It's because I feel like they just have nothing to say.
Right. And I think that's what I'm saying when I say, like, in Fight Club, people say some really fucked up shit, and there's, like, wild ideologies in that, but it really functions to their character. And so, in this, I just kind of, I feel like it's kind of just hollow. And I don't know. That was something I actually, like, was super aware of the whole time, where I'm like, God, a lot of their, like, filler words, and a lot of their, like, where their quote-unquote relationship exists, like, between, like, the murderer Alec Baldwin and Marky Mark's character, it's like they would goof around and like say like, like, I'm fucking your mother. Oh yeah, well you fucked my mother. You took all of my mother, huh? Inside your body, huh? That's cool. And it's like I'm just be like, I'm like, dude, you guys are like, this is, I get like locker room talk, and these are cool guys, but it's like, police are dumb and boring as hell, and they're I'm sure that's like somewhat. Because this is one of those movies where they went to the police department and they like worked with them. Like everyone was like, they went and like
That makes
went
sense.
on like
They're
a week.
I don't want to put it
and-
in the movie, but these cops keep dropping N-bombs and F-bombs.
No.
I guess we just got to put it in there
real.
for reality. You know?
Oh yeah. Well, no, Scorsese couldn't make a movie that would portray a cop correctly because it would be vile. People would just be like this. They would think it's unrealistic because they have this fucking
Just
projected
like a serial killer.
hero that a cop is, dude. No, really though, cops are fucking terrible. So it'd just be like, it'd be like, I don't know.
Don't say
you
hero
couldn't make
cop to me. All right, we're getting off the fucking rails, dude.
Well, like he opened up a can of worms, dude. It's like,
Anyway.
it's like, next question on the next movie, just make it just softball, baby. Just make it.
No, I like the hard
I do
questions,
like it.
but it just makes the podcast fucking longer.
I know, yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, it's a real impactful thing that I'm happy to see the history, and it's cool to see film like through the ages and how it has changed, and how much a strong character that's racist, like in like fucking Gangs of New York. It's like he is like a despicable racist character, but it works so well for his character. It's like, he harbors so much resentment, and it like works for the time period. I don't know. So it's like,
and it's definitely no excuse.
Definitely appropriate.
It's definitely no excuse to say it's from the time, from a different time and all that. But it's like, sadly, we gotta admit that like, in the 20th century, like fucking 95% of all people were just super racist and terrible to each other for the worst reasons. And I mean, they still are, but it's just like, I don't know.
It's small steps
It's
to be a little more.
It's improved, you
aware.
know what I mean? For sure.
Yeah.
I hope. But it is. You look at movies.
A lot of work to do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. Maybe one of these days we should have just a full side podcast just about.
Yeah, we'll do like a bonus episode. Of just
I do think it's interesting. I'd like to do a little bit homework and like discuss it a little bit, because I think it is interesting, like not just racism but just general.
Well, and it would but I mean, on that topic too, it would be really cool. I follow some
just like
YouTube creators,
hateful language throughout cinema history and how it's changed, and purposes of its use.
We can touch, because honestly, up until the Moonlight scandal, it like is white as hell, dude. And it still barely has changed, but it's like. True. So, I mean, that what was that? Like 2012, 2018 or something? Yeah, when was Moonlight? I can't remember now.
Those are two totally different years. Yeah, it was like 2015, 2016.
15.
I think it was 15. I want to say, if I remember right.
So-
It won when I was living at the duplex, so whenever that was.
okay.
Because that was, I actually think that was the
Oh,
first Oscar party
Yeah.
that I had, because this year was the 6th year. And so
yeah, dude.
it was 2015, and then 2016 was probably the year of the Oscars, but released in 15. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
All right, anyway.
Damn.
We're right
Well,
at
okay.
120.
Thank you, Travis.
Wait,
Yeah,
we
I know.
forget,
Yeah.
Watch more Martin Scorsese movies if you like The Departed. Honestly, I do think.
See the original.
Yeah, check it out. Our next movie we're watching next week. We're doing remakes still. We're watching the 1988 The Blob, which is pretty great. I'm excited to rewatch that. It's a lot of fun. So check that movie out. Come leave us a comment. Check out the website, goldcinemaknowledge.com. Check out the Patreon. Join us for our cinema rambles on there. We got all the movies. If you can't watch The Blob, you can watch it if you're a Patreon member, you can watch it on the Plex once I put that up. Instagram, Reddit, get involved in conversation. What's your favorite racist movie? I don't know.
Yeah, right. Anyway, come on, let us know anything you want. And our wonderful, awesome Patreon subscribers out there, gotta hit up Kylie, Landon. I hope that you guys have the Plex working better now. Anyways,
Hopefully
we can try to troubleshoot that more. And then Thomas, thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
And then
You gotta
Moms,
catch up on these movies, Moms.
thank you.
All
You
right.
guys rock. But and call us if you wanna participate like Travis.
I almost said stop
Give us-
recording, dude. Write the number.
Maybe
The number.
okay.
Yeah, you almost didn't make it.
Alrighty. If you want to participate in a phone conversation with yourself because you're going to leave a voicemail, give us a call at 801-613-1501. You'll go to a Google voicemail and you'll be able to leave your thoughts, comments, let us know just everything you got on your mind, please. All right, bud.
All right. Thanks for listening. Sorry that
Good
was
night.
long-winded. Tune in next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Together.